All right, so now let's talk about covalent bonding. So remember, covalent bonds are formed by the sharing of electrons, right? That's why I'm saying covalent, cooperate, they share. So again, the other one, ionic bonding, one of them gave away an electron, the other one accepted an electron. In this one, they are sharing electrons, right? They're not giving or accepting, they're sharing. All right, and so just kind of to illustrate that, covalent bonding again, it's usually explained as atoms sharing electrons. But we're going to see in this tutorial that that's not exactly what happens, but it's close enough for us to be able to explain it like that, right? Sharing electrons can hold two atoms together. Right, so here what we see, before we start explaining covalent bonds, let's experiment with these two atoms. Right, so right here you see the yellow gold thing is a proton, and this little black particle moving around is the electron. Right, so it says in the box below are the two hydrogen atoms. Try moving them around and see how they interact with each other. Right, so I'm going to move one hydrogen ion or atom closer to the other one. And remember, hydrogen only has one proton and one electron. This is why this is hydrogen right here. And so let's look at the electrons and how they move. And this is more realistic of how electrons move around. They move around just kind of in the orbit, but they almost look like electron clouds because of how fast they move around. So let's see. You see, when you start bringing them closer to each other, the electrons are attracted to each other, right? Because they need, if you think about these, each one of them has this shell, right? And in this shell, they need two electrons to fulfill that shell. So these electrons really want to, these outer shells really want to come close to each other because they want to bond with each other, right? So look at the electrons. They're moving really close towards each other. When you have them apart, this electron moves in all different directions. But once you bring it closer to the other one, it's kind of just moving in the direction of the other proton, of the other electron. Right. So this is what is happening. And then when you bring them close enough together, they're sharing with each other, right? They're sharing those two electrons. And so this is what kind of keeps them connected with each other. You can pull them apart hard enough, but here, again, they come close to each other and they stay connected to each other because they're essentially like sharing these electrons right here. Whoops. And so, all right. And so before we continue, be sure to know these things, right? How is the movement of the electrons different when the atoms are close? And what happens if you try to move the atoms very close to each other? And so again, when they're far apart, these electrons are going all over the direction, right? North, south, east, west. When you bring them here, they're just moving in the same direction as the other electron, right? And when you move them close enough together, they become bonded with each other and they do not come apart. Right, so these two electrons are sharing that shell, are sharing those pairs of electrons in its shell. Right, so in the image below, a line has been added showing the attraction that the nucleus on the left, right here, has for its own electron. Right, so the atom on the right has the same attraction for its own electron, but it isn't being shown. So this line right here is kind of showing you the attachment that it has. And look what happens when this one starts to come closer right here. You see, it gets longer and longer, and it starts moving in the direction of the other electron. Right, they're moving towards each other. The electrons are. Right, so when the two atoms get even closer, the nucleus on the left it has a strong attraction for its electron, and the one on the other electron. Right, so at this point, both atoms are attracting both electrons. We can see that the electrons spend most of their time between the two nuclei. Right, so the electrons are right here in between the two. It's almost like you're trying to walk a dog, and the dogs are attracted to each other, right? And they pull you and the other person towards each other because the dogs are going towards each other, right? So right there, it's kind of keeping the two protons, the two atoms connected together.